Just the three of us. We can make it if we try. Just the three of us. Three's a podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Three's a Podcast. I'm your host this week, Mr. Pulaski, aka Matt Pulaski, and with us we have, of course, Evan Rada and the James.
What's up?
So I guess the
Yo!
reason I'm doing the intro this week is it's my turn, my topic, and I wanted to talk about something because it legitimately shocked me when I was seeing the stats on it. I'm not a person who buys into fear mongering, and I really actually am bothered by, for years we've heard the whole TV's rotting your brain, rock and roll music is noise pollution. So I've always been, video games make kids violent. You hear a lot of bullshit, and you have to always kind of roll your eyes and go, okay, well, this is the new generation. They're going to keep saying this every new technology that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a very science based person, and a lot of those specific things I listed, like TV and stuff, you can actually look at the results and see how they affect people. But I've never been so shocked by the effect that social media has on people, and which is of course the topic this week is based on social media, because I was so shocked by the info I was seeing, and these are legit peer-reviewed studies. I guess what first tipped me off to it is I listened to Joe Rogan a lot, and he had Jonathan Haidt, who's a researcher and has written several books. And I think he was on promoting his book called The Coddling of the American Mind. I probably butchered that, but it's something along those lines. And it was mostly talking about college kids on campus. And as a little section of that, he was talking about the difference between kind of this generation that's in college right now,
Yeah.
and the generations preceding it. And one of the biggest differences that all of those kids got social media when they were in, grade school and middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, he was showing some graphs, and basically it's like looking at a ski slope. Like, it literally shows kids. Now, this is not. You can't say 100% that these graphs are. This is exactly the correlation is social media, but
Right.
the implications are pretty heavy that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just see, basically right around the time social media started becoming integrated into our lives would be around basically 2010, 2011. MySpace was on before that, but it was very much a novelty. Facebook, I made a Facebook around 2009. I think I was 14.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's about right. And it was still kind of a novelty at the time. It wasn't really around until around 2011, 2012 when Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, these social media services became basically integrated into your life. Like, instead of it being like, this is a fun gimmick online, it became
Right.
like, this is my social life. And so the correlation seemed to, like, basically right around those times, you just see on these graphs, and we can maybe put really, if you just look up if you look up Jonathan Haidt and basically Google him and research on, I think you can just Google even just research on social media causing anxiety or depression, and I would use Google Scholar, and you can pull up these peer-reviewed articles, and as well as that, you can even just go to the images and find actual graphs, because it's
Really?
it's really crazy to look at, because you look at these things, it's basically like cases of anxiety with teens, and it's like, you have this certain baseline, which, by the way, it's always worse in women for both of these, but then you just see it like skyrocket up right around the time that Facebook and Instagram and all these social media things became such a big deal. I think Instagram is probably the worst one for women, but we'll get into more of that later. I was gonna say right off the bat, just because obviously the three of us are from a certain generation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. Well, I guess I'd say, like, how do you think social media has affected the two of you, or has it at all? I kind of know Evan's answer this a little bit, but obviously we'll be reiterating a little bit. James, what is your how do you think social media affects you a lot? What's the main reason you use it? Did you start at a young age using social media?
Yeah, I did. I did start at a pretty young age using social media. I believe I was like 12 or something like that. I can't remember.
And was that like MySpace, probably?
No. It was Facebook. Oh no, I was older than that. I think.
I would say so, right? Because you're a year older than me,
Hmm.
and I think I was probably around anywhere from 10 to 12 was when MySpace was a big deal for me.
Oh, okay. Um,
But
but the primary reason I use social media is usually only for like there's a podcast or my YouTube channel or something like that. That's about it. But I never really got to the these people's lives are better than mine or anything like that.
right.
So for me,
Well, I'd say, like, I don't know about you, but my early Facebook experience was very much like, and it's embarrassing, but um, Facebook has like a memories feature where it'll show you your memory on the same day. Basically, it'll show you what you posted on the same day a year
Yeah.
ago, or then
Mhm.
5 years ago. Well, so like I said, I started in 2009, so I literally have like 10 years worth of posts. And if you look from around 2009 through like 2012, even later than that, most of the posts that I'm putting is things like, just listen to the new Blink 182 album. It's
Mhm.
pretty good. Or
Yeah.
like, just went to Toys R Us. F yeah. It was like literally all my posts were like that, like really mundane shit.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's because to me, it really was a gimmick to use. It was more like, oh, this is really interesting. I can say something here and let people know what's going on in my life, and everyone else can see it. But it definitely did not, I didn't think about it at all as a function of my actual social life. Um, Maybe later in my teen years, I'd say that social media sites became more useful in that, in the sense that, like, if you wanted to figure out if a girl was single, or you wanted to try to get in contact with someone without having to ask for their number,
Yeah.
then it was useful. But for the most part, I really think I missed the wave of it being like an important thing, right? I never cared about having a lot of Facebook friends or Twitter. In fact, I've never really used Twitter.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
anyway, Evan, what's your experience with social media? Did you start at a young age? Do you think it's affected you? Did you see it as a big player in your social life?
Do forums really count? Because I'd say the first thing I did that was close to that, I was like 11, and I was on like some anime forums. But my first actual social media site was MySpace. I'd say it was about 14 when I made my MySpace account, and even then it was kind of impersonal. I used it actually in the early days to chat with people in different countries. So that was the main function I had. It wasn't really sharing my life with people. It was I had a few short-lived online friendships just all over the world. And I actually made my Facebook, and I just realized this a couple days ago. I made my Facebook in 2008, and it actually sat for 2 years with nothing. But for me, social media has never been that damn important to me. And I'd say the negative effect it's had on me is just the fact that it got to the point where I just couldn't really communicate with people anymore because everything became so impersonal.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't keep up with people. I'd have, and even now sometimes I have people approach me. It's like, oh, well, that was on Facebook. It's like, I'm never really on Facebook. To this day, it's still just a form of communication. I use the messenger on my phone, and typically, if you see that I'm online, that's all I'm doing is I'm chatting with people. I mean, recently, of course, I started my own business, and I've been using it for that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of as a marketing tool.
Yeah, but it seems like though online, I don't know, you kind of have to navigate socially, and it's difficult for me to even communicate to people through those channels because I'm very much an in-person type of guy.
Right.
So to me, I guess it just felt like there's a huge barrier, and even among people that you know in person, there's a different culture you have to follow on the internet, on Facebook and on Instagram.
Right.
So I guess, maybe I'm just the old man that never caught up, but to me, I don't know. I've always been the type that just never got too caught up with it. Actually, to the point where some people have actually felt insulted because I wasn't responding to their posts or liking them, or I've actually been tagged in things and not known about it for months.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I even got to the point recently where sometimes I'm on just to gratuitously, respond to things that people tag me in.
Right.
It's like maintenance. Yeah. Well, I guess the reason I wanted to bring it up was because to point out kind of where we're coming from, because obviously the three of us are from we probably just missed the boat. I feel like that's not to say that like I can say that social media can affect me negatively. The main thing I would say though is I don't feel like it's a necessity, whereas I feel probably younger generations do, because I mean, if you think about someone who started using social media when they're in middle school, sometimes 5th, 6th grade, that means that a large part of their social life is social media, and that's half of their interaction. Like that's half of their whole thing. Whereas we were probably more like 90% our social life had to do with real life, and then maybe as we got a little older, there was a little bit of an added, maybe that 10% came into play as far as us, social media becoming a little bit of a player.
Right.
So obviously we can't quite understand the exact position that the younger people are in, but I think what the reason it's really I guess the reason it's concerned me is obviously kids are having more anxiety, more depression, but there's actually data like showing that more kids have actually killed themselves
because of social media.
Well, due to the basically episodes having to do with it. So self-harm basically. So
That's interesting.
Yeah, and we can maybe link these later or something, but I'm looking at a graph right now. Hospital admissions for non-fatal self-harm from girls.
Yeah.
Right around 2009, from ages 15 to 19, it shot up. Since 2009, it's been up 52%. Which is basically girls cutting themselves, things like that, and having to end up going to the ER because of it.
Oh my gosh.
Because of depressive episodes. This is that's pretty bad.
Yeah, it is.
Now, but here's what's worse, man. Ages 10 to 14, it has gone up 189% since 2009.
Oh my gosh.
So we're looking at almost a 200% increase of girls committing self-harm on themselves. I mean, so this is specifically girls. Now, here's the other thing. Here's the weird thing, though. You look at the ages 20 to 24. It pretty much stays. It's only 17%. Compared to the other two, and you look at this graph. It's just a straight line. It's not affecting very much. So clearly, the younger we go, basically, you look at people ages 15 to 19. They got social media like the ways, you look at how social media has been affecting from since 2009, and it's like you look at these ages 10 to 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds or whatever, where social, like you can basically see where the social media has been fully integrated into that generation, and then you see
Okay.
the effects of it.
Right.
Suicide rate has gone up 25% from males age 15 to 19.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
25% is a pretty big number of a pretty big jump. I'm looking at a graph from going up to 2015, and you can once again see right around 2010, 2010, it just shoots up like a slope. 25% increase all of a sudden. And then the female 70% increase of suicide rate in ages 15 to 19. So
Damn.
Wow. The reason I really want to pull the stats up is because this is the stuff that made me want to do this as a topic. I was just blown away by this. I was like, these are high numbers. Like, this should be concerning people. And like I said, this is just looking at the time that this started happening and then correlating it to the time that social media took off. There's not this isn't like a fact, like factually, people are killing themselves because of social media. But what I would say is it seems to be at least one very large factor in it.
Yeah.
And so I guess I just want to mostly I wanted to bring it up to bring awareness to it. And by the way, this is another test of they were checking if they were asking men and women if they have a psychological disorder, percentage, and it's basically percentage of students saying yes. And
wow,
you can literally see where Gen Z starts, which by the way, Gen Z is 1995 and younger.
That's what everybody's saying now. So okay.
Yeah, so Gen Z is if you were born 1995 or later, and then I guess we're millennials, 94 and earlier. So, but you can just see this huge slope where it went from like, I'm not sure exactly how these numbers pan out, but it looks like it jumped like a massive percentage jump on people who consider themselves to have psychological disorders, as far as like an anxiety disorder or depressive episode.
Okay.
But anyway, to get out of the data talk a little bit, but these are the numbers I was looking at that was just blowing my mind. And
right.
The question is, like I said, whether or not it's I don't know that it's 100% social media, but it's definitely a driving factor. And I think. I guess the question is, why do you think it's affecting young people so much?
I know that I didn't know about the suicide, that it was so bad, but I do know that a lot of people felt more depressed looking at social media because they felt their lives were inadequate or less than somebody else's or something like that. So I have heard that plenty of times, that they feel depressed because I guess they think their life is boring when they don't really know, like everybody can make their life look, more extravagant or whatever than it actually is. And so, but yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Evan, did you have something?
Well, another factor, we haven't covered this yet, but the internet takes away a lot of accountability. And in a lot of cases where you see suicides, there was a level of harassment there too. So it was, so a lot of it probably was brought on by earlier depression. But I read there's a news article probably at least once a month about somebody that was harassed online and ended up committing suicide.
Yeah, and
I mean,
good.
you know, so that's one factor is, the anonymity isn't there necessarily on social media, like it has been in the past. But you can still have 50 people from high school insult you on your photo
Yeah.
or harass you on Facebook. And typically, there's not a lot of rules that can be enforced by a school or be enforced by anybody unless you take it to the cops. So it's one of those things where everybody feels they can get away with it, and people will just en masse harass a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the point, there are even kids that make a video on YouTube when they're you're 13 or 14, everybody thinks it's hilarious, and it blows up, and it's all over social media and everywhere. And people just make, you're made fun of by millions of people.
Yeah.
That's an extreme case, but we're getting into this era where everybody is connected to the entire world.
Yeah.
And for a young developing mind, especially between the ages of, let's say, 10 to 16, that's probably the worst time for you to take that type of information overload. Especially when you do feel like, say you're the poor kid in school, and it's summertime and you're watching everybody's vacation to Hawaii. That's going to bring on a level of depression. And then in addition to that, say, you post a picture of, the outfit that you went out in. You went to a party or some social event, and then somebody, gets jealous and harasses you and gets all their friends to. It's a total free for all, pretty much. Even though you can report, abusive posts and comments.
Right.
There's only so much any algorithm can do.
Yeah.
To catch that.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's a really good point. I think that's something that I'm guilty of kind of being dismissive of is cyberbullying. I don't think so. I think especially with adults, I think cyberbullying sometimes gets a little bit too blown up because it seems to be a big thing that parents pay attention to, and it's always been a big news thing. But like I said, we're talking about us. We're a generation where we're not as tied to social media. But this younger generation, it really is a big part of their social media. So the bullying that takes place to them on their social media is their social life. That is them being bullied by people they know. And I think that's a good point because I don't know. I mean, we all know high school girls. High school anything. High school boys can be total assholes. Like we all know that. Like just animals. Just teenage boys can sometimes be the worst human beings on the planet. But people sometimes dismiss the fact that high school girls are fucking mean. Like they're not going to dunk your head in a toilet, but they will fucking be passive aggressive as hell to these other girls. And I think that you take that to a social media level
right
now where they're even less filtered. I mean, and you're starting rumors. I mean, think about it was never an issue 20 years ago where you could get a nude off the internet, send it to everyone and say, hey, look, this is Carla.
Yeah.
Or something. Imagine the type of things that people can do, rumors and all that. And I think that there is bullying is probably 10 times worse with social media at a young age. And yeah, I think that's a good point. And then I even think the data overload thing. I mean, people generally, this might be everyone, but you look at the world because we have the internet now, and it just seems like the internet sometimes just shows you the worst of people. And I think you can end up just thinking that the world is just shitty. Or like you said on Instagram, everyone looks so perfect, you look at these Instagram models with perfect bodies and everything. That's not a good. Those aren't good imaging. Isn't good imaging for girls, and I think that's why it is worse for women. Guys don't value that as much in other guys. So if you see a hot guy or something on Instagram, it's guys aren't as pro. That's not something we value as much. Or actually, I'd say that's something society doesn't value as much. With women, it's definitely looks. As far as social media, looks are a very high value. And it's a blessing and a curse because we've all seen the hot chick with a really dumb post, but she's hot and gets 100 likes.
Yeah.
But there's also the negative side of that is, what if you're not the hot girl and you're posting clever stuff or you're posting interesting things and you're not getting any likes? Like, that could be pretty devastating. So I do think that's a really good point.
Yeah. Well, and it's been admitted, too, that these websites are designed to... They're basically designed to affect your subconscious and get you addicted. And that's been admitted by the people that run the websites.
Right.
These algorithms are completely, they're basically designed to trigger your brain the same way that drugs do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, not to get off topic, but there was a study that was also done on mobile games and how they trigger the brain in a very similar way. So I mean, we're also living in an era where people, I mean, it's very sinister. And as someone that does a lot of study in hypnosis and in the subconscious, I find that very disturbing.
Right.
Because they're operating on a level that the general public does not ever even think about. And in fact, sometimes I forget that because I wonder why people don't fall for some of these gimmicks. And it's like, oh, well, these people have no idea what's being done to them most of the time.
Yeah.
But I also remember a time when having your entire social life online was for neckbeards, was for people, basically social outcasts that live in their mom's basements.
Yeah.
And that's what's been an interesting shift for me. Because even in my early days, when I was getting into MySpace and some of the early Facebook, it was still very similar.
Right.
A lot of people were posting mundane shit, but the people that were attached in my early internet days were always, you had a stereotype to it. And these were people that weren't able to really relate with anyone else, either around them or in society in general, and that's where they would congregate. And, of course, that's where you get the story of, 4chan and Anonymous and all these different forums. You talk about, the worst of humanity and the outcast. That was where, that was what built these type of communities before, the everyday person started posting their whole life on the internet.
Yeah.
And I think what we've done is we watch the process of normal people kind of ending up going down that road. Because then the general public started realizing the lack of accountability. And now, on Facebook, most of the time you're posting, you've got your real name, you've got a picture, but there's still, there's as long as there's that barrier where it is still somewhat impersonal, I don't think people are going to feel accountable. They're going to continue to do cyberbullying, and they're going to continue to harass each other. But I don't know. I just don't think that. And I mentioned this last week, or I guess that episode probably comes out this week. But I did a podcast with you last week where I mentioned no one under 16 should probably be on social media.
Yeah.
Because of that whole overload and that there's this whole. I think it takes a fairly mature mind to be able to handle the type of environment you're stepping into mentally,
right?
Psychologically, because it is a very different headspace.
Yeah.
I mean, I mentally separate everything that I do online from what I do in real life.
Yeah.
And I think that we're probably the last of, our generation is the last of the people that are able to do that, because we weren't raised on computers.
Yeah.
And now you've got 3-year-olds playing with tablets, and it's like, what are they going to be like? Because you have 3-year-olds now that are, or let's say the children from the age of 3 to 7 now, because we've had smartphones since 2012.
That's when they became accessible to most people.
Yeah. I mean, because we used to have kids, parents that raised their kids on TV and complained about that. Now we have parents distracting with these devices, and they're going to be truly, fully raised on that technology.
Oh yeah.
And and I think now is the time to take a step back and think, do we need to seriously look into how this is affecting even younger children? Because eventually you are going to have, first and second graders are going to be on Facebook, and the depression's going to go even younger. You're going to start seeing self-harm and all these similar issues going younger and younger until we finally wake up and go, okay, this is going to happen until these children are mature enough to understand what, basically what they're doing.
Right.
Because I don't think until you reach a certain age, you fully comprehend that there is another person on the other side of on the other side of the communication that you're bridging.
Right.
I mean, it's hard enough for people. It's hard enough for people at that age to even identify in real life that they can affect other people. Like, that's like just a basic psychological thing that it seems like even as a teenager in real life, when you're bullying other kids, or like you seem to be unaware that you're, everything kind of seems to revolve around you, and it's hard for you to acknowledge that you can actually affect other people's lives. You add a screen in front of that, and it really is hard to identify the fact that you might be affecting other people in a negative way.
I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the saddest thing that I see is not just kids, but parents who are stuck on their phone all day, and they don't get the attention they need from their parents because their parents can't take a few seconds or whatever to pay attention to their kid, because they're so focused on what's going on in social media.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a tragedy, and I didn't think about that, but that's a good point. How young it's really gotten.
Yeah, I see that all the time where you have the mom or whatever and it actually usually is mothers that I see that are just stuck on their phones and can't let go or take some time to pay attention to their kid. So I don't know,
so I guess that actually kind of leads into kind of the next thing I want to talk about, which is and this is obviously a no right answers area because I don't know, but the question is, what is the solution? I mean, Evan brought up the idea of maybe not allowing kids 16 and under, and being a very liberty-minded person, my first thought is, well, that sounds that we shouldn't like ban this or make it or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, look, I agree with I think anyone should be able to do anything, but you also should be of age, right? It gets to a certain point where it could be considered child abuse. If you have kids that are hurting themselves or possibly even, killing themselves due to social media intake, maybe there should be some regulation there. Not even regulation, but just protections, protect the kids. But do you think that's something that could actually happen?
As far as making the kid wait till they're 16?
Yeah, like maybe even setting up some laws.
Oh yeah, I think it should happen. So I think it would be
difficult to put it into practice because what do you consider social media? You know what I mean? Is Xbox Live social media? Because it's starting to Xbox Live, for instance, is starting to take on a social media vibe. You can join clubs, you can have groups with your friends on there, you have a profile. So the only reason the only objection I have to that is, or not even an objection, but the concern would be, how do you exactly enforce that? What do you define as social media?
Right.
You might have to specifically.
You would probably have to
say,
specifically state which social networks
right.
would be dangerous.
And I think that would be probably the best thing if you just did Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And honestly, I don't, a lot of those websites, you're supposed to be 14 before you can make an account, right? And that's not, you have plenty. We talked about this on the youngsters on Instagram episode.
Sexualization of younglings.
Yeah, that's what it was. I hate that word, but yeah. So, I don't know if that could really work. Like, I don't know how it would come in. Whether it does or not, I think one thing that definitely could come into play is parents just being more. I don't think parents are aware of how social media is going to affect their kids. I just don't think they think about it. But it's made me realize, like, man, if and when I have a kid, I really am going to probably have them wait till they're like Evan recommended, maybe 16, 17 before they start using social media.
But the question is, do parents even care? Because some of them know what it's doing. They just don't give a shit.
Yeah, that's probably the case. I don't think they're ignoring it, probably. But I think that, like I said, I do think a big part of that is you're not seeing the effects that you are if you keep your eyes open. Obviously, the effects are there. But when a kid is depressed and kills himself or something, most people are not instantly looking at social media. They're just going to go, oh, well, this kid had some problems. This kid. Yeah, I think that awareness is one of the best things we can do, is try to get people to realize, like, hey, look, this is a big deal. This isn't your grandpa saying that TV is going to rot your brain. Like, this is, we're seeing the legitimate effects of something that is psychologically affecting
damaging
people.
Children.
You're not interacting with television, so that's the difference. You're interacting with social media.
Right.
Yeah, I believe Facebook does have an age limit of 13. When I got into MySpace, they had an age limit of, I think, 12 or 13 too. But I mean, that's, you're getting into middle school. That's still, like, I don't know. To me, that still feels very young.
Yeah, it is.
I feel a stark difference between a person that's in middle school and a person that's in high school.
Yeah.
Development-wise. Because when you hit that adolescence, that's basically you're rapidly developing and changing. So when you reach that, when you hit somebody with, you're a couple years into adolescence at that point. I guess for some people it's a novelty, but for someone that's been on the internet forever, I think that's going to affect them a lot worse. Like my brother, he's 5 years younger than me, and I remember when he got his Facebook, he kind of had the same view I did. To where it was overall a novelty and it wasn't that big of a deal. And I feel like he's part of really that that last group of kids that was able to make that separation. It could just be a personality thing, but
I'll say this though. I'm friends with your brother on Facebook, and he does post a lot of very drama stuff that is involved with his relationship and talking about other people. I would say that it is I can tell from looking at it. Not that I'm trying to talk shit on your brother. There's nothing necessarily wrong with what he's doing. But even that age, even that difference right there within that age group, I can see the difference between the engagement of how it does seem to the Facebook does seem to intertwine a little bit with his real social life.
Yeah. I mean, probably, a couple steps above mine.
Right.
But you can see the stages too.
Yeah.
When you go back, like if you took, say, somebody, let's take a 30-year-old and just go back 2 years. Statistically, I would be willing to bet you would probably see the effects growing. If you went, say, from 30 back to 12 or 15.
Sure.
And I don't, the studies aren't there yet because this is such a new thing in our culture.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And I think maybe most people aren't as concerned with it because, well, I mean, we're not concerned because it didn't affect us as much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are members of our generation that were fully sucked into it. And in fact, I know because I can see it. I mean, I see it affecting people my parents' age.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could very well be, our personalities just don't mesh with it. I mean, I'm socially retarded if I ever try to do any type of online dating.
Sure.
Like I just can't communicate with people properly online because, I mean, for one, I don't keep up with the memes. I don't keep up with all the online culture stuff. I just don't have time for it. But I do know people that it's like, oh, well, that meme died, 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
Or 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm just now seeing this trend. Which I always tended to be someone that either got into something before it was cool or way after it dies. So I'm typically never with it anyway. But I mean, that might just be my personal bias of, I prefer to live my real life as opposed to scrolling through things on my phone. And I have noticed personally, when I am feeling a lot of anxiety, I will get on Facebook and I'll just scroll, like mindlessly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to stop myself. But for me, anxiety is usually the trigger before I do it. Which it may be the opposite. I believe it's the opposite probably for a lot of other people. But yeah, it's one of those things where you mindlessly get caught in this loop of looking at shit that doesn't even interest you.
Yeah, and I think that's important to state because, I don't want it to come off at all like we're sitting on some kind of high horse, like, oh, look at all these young people that are brainwashed by Facebook. I definitely am addicted to Facebook, and I fucking hate Facebook. And I still will get on it all the time. Like, when I'm bored, like if I'm sitting down and let's say I'm waiting for something, like you hit the button on the elevator or something like that and you're waiting. It's like, I'm going to pull out my phone and naturally want to click on Facebook and scroll through. And here's when I say I fucking hate Facebook. The reason what I mean is opposite of Evan, I actually get depressed and anxious from scrolling through Facebook because most of Facebook is not original. It's people sharing ideas. So they just share pictures all the time.
Yeah.
And the problem, and now there's not inherently something wrong with that. And people actually share very funny stuff and people share interesting things sometimes. But for the most part, it's people sharing political ideologies, sharing really ridiculous stuff, sharing like very clearly just being brainwashed into things. And I will legitimately get depressed from scrolling through Facebook. And after doing the last Versus the World podcast we did where we talked about it, I actually considered maybe getting off social media for a while and taking another break from it, which is always kind of a difficult thing because I think we talked about it on that podcast, but you can come off pretentious or whatever. But I think I might just take a little bit of a break because I definitely get on it, like constantly pull it up. I wanted to, so it definitely affects me. And one thing I wanted to get into is some way that I think it actually does affect our age group
Right.
Now, not in how it actually affects our age group socially is, like Evan said, I'm also a guy where I'm behind on the memes half the time. There's a couple of areas that I'm up to date on, and that would be cringe, because I really like cringe content, so I'm always keeping up with the new cringe videos. So I will usually keep up with new things in certain areas of the internet. But as far as the new memes, I don't have iFunny.
Right.
Reddit is the place I see memes the most, and I actually get really irritated. Like, sometimes I think memes are just really like bad humor. So I'm a bit of a snob too.
Oh, okay.
But what I'll say is, I've definitely been. I mean, I've been in, like, right now, my roommate. I've kind of been introduced to his friend group since we've been roommates, and I really enjoy hanging out with them. But there are times where I feel a little bit out of the loop, because they're speaking in SpongeBob references, they're speaking in memes, and I feel sometimes like I really do feel like the old fart in the room, and so it actually has gotten in the way of me, on a social level. The other thing I was going to bring up, just because it's kind of funny, but it's true, and I know Evan said he's had very similar situations. I pretty much have to try to date women my age, like, right, or maybe a couple years younger. But I went out with a girl, like a 19-year-old or something like that at one point. Actually, I've had 2 different dates with girls that were a little part of the Gen Z, basically. And one of the dates I went on, the girl was showing me some of her Instagram pictures while we were having coffee, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then she scrolls through, shows me a picture. She scrolls through, shows another picture. Pretty soon, she's just scrolling through Instagram. And I try to make it a note to, like, I don't usually even pull my phone out if I'm, especially on a one-on-one, if I'm out with someone having especially on a date or something. So I'm sitting in this awkward situation where this girl is just scrolling through, like, addicted to social media, and I feel like an asshole sitting there, like, staring at my shoelaces. And that's a little more of a funny thing, but I was like, damn, it's becoming such an issue. The generation gap there is such an issue that it's like, I don't even think I can date a girl that's over 2 years younger than me. Right. And but anyway, the other thing I'd bring up, I don't know, and I know you guys probably, I know Evan's talked about having similar types of issues, is sometimes if you do try to get off social media, you'll have people get mad at you because they can't get a hold of you, or that they can't. I tried to tag you in something. How come I can't tag you? It's like, it's actually become so integrated into society that it's actually almost stigmatized or a shameful thing to not be on social media. Right. And I mean, I had the one big issue I was talking about in relationships was being in. Basically having the issue where your significant other is getting pissed off because you're not posting pictures of them, or taking pictures with you in them and posting them online. Yeah. And I had to have that conversation. It's like, look, I started using Facebook more the last several months, and I only use it more in the sense that I use it as a place to post jokes, because I want to try to get into stand-up. So I'll kind of post jokes and then see how people react to them, and then see if I can work it into a bit. So I use it in that sense. But before that, I pretty much would never post on Facebook, and just I just don't post on Facebook. And when I do, it's just text. I never post pictures really or anything, hardly ever. But then you have someone, you have women maybe feeling like now that's a fucking requirement for relationships. It's like that's a problem when social media is so integrated into women's lives that they need validation online so much that it's like a requirement that the boyfriend has to post pictures and be like, oh my god, look at my amazing little cutie pie. It's like, and it wasn't until this moment, actually, I'm thinking about it, I always kind of blame that more on the person being like, you're a little bit being ridiculous, and that's true to an extent, but the other part is like, well, maybe there's some societal pressure to do that. So
see, the issue is, I'm enough of an asshole that I wouldn't do that sarcastically. See, that's the kind of thing I would do if I actually got into an argument with my girlfriend, is I probably wouldn't have that exact phrase you just said.
Yeah.
No, here's my issue. See, I have ADD. And there are about 10, there's about probably 10 different social media platforms. If you account
Yeah.
for Snapchat and Pinterest and everything, and they've all got a different culture and I can't keep up with more than 2 at a time. Like I tried to do Twitter for a while, I didn't get it. Right now it's Facebook and Snapchat, or Facebook and Instagram. Snapchat,
Yeah.
it's one of the, I feel retarded on Snapchat.
Right.
But it's one of those things where I don't know how anybody. I mean, it's got to be stressful and overwhelming to try to check all these platforms constantly all day.
Yeah.
It's like because I know people. Most people I know don't follow all of the top 10, which I don't think I could sit here and name them all off. But I do know people that they're on like 5 different websites, 5 different social media
Yeah.
channels, and they're running through all of them constantly, and they've got completely different set of people that they communicate with on each one, and it's like, how do you integrate that whenever you're living, if you're living a full life and you got to go to work, or you've got school, or anything else that's important that takes up your time, it's almost a full-time job to keep up with your social media.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I actually do get irritated, if I when I'm walking through the mall and there's 20 people in a line on their phones, and it's like, or you go to a concert and you've got 20 people, or rows and rows of people on their phones at the concert for somebody that maybe a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you're, instead of experiencing the concert, you're experiencing showing people you're at the concert. I can't remember who it was. Was it H3 that pointed that out about Coachella? There was all these people. Basically, there was a photo that somebody took of all these people at Coachella taking pictures of themselves.
Yeah, H3 showed the video, but yeah, there was like a video going around where someone was just filming Coachella, and it was just, I mean, it almost looked staged. It was just all these girls having to take Instagram photos at Coachella, and it was just very telling of the Instagram society.
Yeah. Well, you see, if I'm going to a major event, it might be cool to take one pic, but to be, I could never be the kind of person that's just taking pictures of every damn thing.
I mean,
at the event, and because I'm not getting paid to do it.
right.
It's not my job to document the entire event. If a friend asks me what it was like, well, somebody got paid to log the whole damn thing. Go look it up yourself. And that's the old man at me, but it's like, I'm out to experience life, and I guess what I wouldn't want anybody to take away from what I have to say about it is like, look, you can choose to experience life, or you can experience someone else's, and that's the majority of these people that are big on social media, that are going viral. These are people that actually are living their lives, and a lot of their posts are, they do post fairly sparingly, unless it's a celebrity that's where most of their income comes from, which is the ad revenue they get from your likes. But I see people all the time. It's like, well, I wish I could experience that. It's like, well, if you invested the amount of time that you spend on a lot of these platforms into, working towards some of those goals, you should experience that. But the goal should never be to experience something like that just so you can show people on Facebook that you did it. Yeah, I think it's crossed that line fairly widely. Is people like, wow, I wish I could do that so I could show people I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, when you're on your deathbed, nobody's going to remember that you went to that music festival and you posted about it.
Yeah. And you're not going to remember as much because you made it and then the whole thing became you taking the picture as opposed to you experiencing the moment.
Yeah, I remember I had an experience a couple years ago where I went to. There's an event out here in Wichita called Dawn of the Dove. It's the biggest rave of the year. It's right around Halloween, and there were people that were. It was like they were practically live streaming the whole event, on their phones, and it was like, this is one of the coolest parties of the year in the whole city. And I don't know, I felt like the whole experience was being dumbed down. Like I took one photo, it was like, encouraging people to show up, and then I'm looking around and, there was a guy that was literally going around just filming people dancing the whole time. And I thought he was with the event, and I went to ask him about it. He goes, "Oh no," he goes, "I just do this every year."
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know. It's sad to me to think about people that there are people out there experiencing other people's lives over the internet instead of going out and creating their own experiences. And there's no way that you don't get depressed doing that.
Right.
Because eventually you're going to feel the sense of urgency creeping up on you. It's like, why am I not doing more with my life? And you're caught in this catch-22 of, I want to go and do more, but I'm also spending all my time watching people actually go out and do stuff.
Right.
And that, I feel like that's a trap that anyone could fall into. I definitely could. Because I have a history with depression, and it's just, it's one of those issues where it takes a very conscious decision to step away or limit yourself and get your priorities straight. Right. Especially when everyone around you can't count on the other people around you to make that decision. I think that the majority is going to be very social media based for a long time. It's going to take those pioneers that are just like, that kind of step away and start, doing it themselves. Just be an example. If you step away and you're on a vacation, and there's maybe 2-3 posts. You're gone for a week, and people wonder what happened. It's like, well, you show them some pics. It's like, well, I wouldn't have experienced it.
Yeah.
I was experiencing. And then I think it's something that would really catch on if more people were just like that. Not necessarily like me. I'm not going to be self-righteous, but because I think I'm a bit too anti-social media to the point where I can be a bit of an asshole about it. But.
Yeah, I think I've been the same way in the past of being like, why does everyone have to take a fucking picture of everything? I think we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's pretty cool that we have access to be able to take pictures of anything. And I do think that there's nothing wrong with people taking pictures to remember a moment. Maybe it's something special they can look back on later and be like, man, that was a really cool event. But the thing is, it should be you're taking photos of the event. The picture shouldn't be the event. And that's where the problem comes in, is you have people where they're doing things just so they can get a good picture of it. And it's like, that's a problem. It's like, do what you're going to do, go out there, enjoy life, do what you're going to do, and then take a photo of it, sure, so you can remember this cool thing later, as long as the picture is not the cool thing. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It looks like we're maybe around hitting the hour mark here, so we can probably wrap it up here if we want to kind of do closing thoughts.
I guess a closing thought would be for me, it's just parents out there, just pay more attention to your kids instead of staying on your phone. Oh, and happy Mother's Day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You all are terrible parents. Happy Mother's Day, by the way.
I realized that how that
I was
sounded.
kidding.
But yeah,
No.
no. I mean, just don't miss the small things in life. So, because you're stuck
Yeah.
on your phone.
Heck yeah. Evan, you
Well,
wanna?
yeah, I guess I'm just going to say, to all the young people out there between, I'm going to say, 12 to 20, that other person's life probably isn't that much better than yours. And, if it's beneficial to you to just shut it off, and just not even not even scroll through your newsfeed, then just do it and don't worry about what anybody else has to say about it. Because that example could have an impact on people.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with both of you guys. I think, and I think it was a good discussion today. I guess my summary would just be, look at the data. Let's pay attention to this thing. I'm not trying to fearmonger or act like it's it's an epidemic or something, but it's definitely something to pay attention to and keep an eye out on. If you are a parent, then that's important. And there's nothing wrong with having a social media and having fun with it. Just don't let those social media things control your life, and don't run your life don't run your life just for the sake of being able to post it online. Don't live your life for these fleeting moments to get likes. Live your life, and use social media to your advantage. So
Absolutely.
I guess we can kind of wrap up there. I would say I just to plug a little bit. I do another podcast called Versus the World with my friend Danny, and we recently had Evan on, and we talked about the same subject, and we kind of hit different areas, so it actually worked out really well. One of the reasons was for a little bit of cross promotion. So you can find Verse the World on most social media sites, and this was the thing we obviously made a joke about on that podcast, was we're sitting here shitting on social media and then plugging all of our stuff, which is why I tried to do better this time of saying that there's not something inherently wrong with social media. It kind of depends on how you use it.
Right.
But if you want to find those podcasts, you can find us on iTunes and Podbean and Spotify and all that, and it's just Verse the World. So check that out if you want to hear a little more on the subject. And I guess we should get Evan, just because it's such a new thing, and if James is all right with it, if you wanted to plug Rate of Mindfulness now that you're kind of fully up and running.
Yeah, I know I've been teasing it for the past few weeks, but my coaching business is now up and running. If you go to rateofmindfulness.com, you can schedule an appointment with me, or you can go to Fiverr and search my name. It's Evan Rada. Rada is REIDA, and I'm taking appointments through there too. If you just want to follow me, ironically, if you want to follow me on Facebook,
Yeah.
just go to Facebook and search Rate of Mindfulness, and you'll find my page. It's very new, and I'm taking messages through all these channels. If you want to, I guess, sit down and do a session with me.
Yeah, so definitely check that out. I was pretty impressed with what Evan's kind of put together, so it's definitely worth looking at. And I guess that kind of wraps up this week. What subject are we doing next week, James?
We're going to do the transgender part 2.
Right, and we have a special guest coming on for that, just kind of having an extra opinion in there that could be interesting.
Who says he's been around it before, so it'll make things very interesting. So I'm pretty excited.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll catch. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the guy by the name of Richard Reed will be making his debut appearance. It's his first podcast ever. So.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll make him feel welcome next week, and obviously we've tackled the subject before, but there's just so much stuff to talk about with the transgender issue, so that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, so this has been Three's a Podcast with Evan Rada, James, and Pulaski, and we'll see you all next week.
Fantastic. I'll see you guys later. Bye.